Hey, I'm Zane Gonzalez. You're watching the Harris Highlight Show.
Na 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 na.
Coming to you live from downtown Phoenix. This is episode 2 of season 2 of the Harris Highlight Show. Joining me this week are college football analyst Josh Schaefer and Lyle Goldstein, with our executive producer and gourmet chef, might I add, Brady Klain, and I'm your host for the evening, Blake Harris. Gentlemen, how are we on this fine evening?
Doing well. It's finally Arizona State game week. It's going to be a fun weekend of college football, boys.
Yeah, we had a few games last week, but I'm definitely ready to get started.
I cooked lunch for you one time, Blake, and I'm now an executive, or like gourmet chef.
Oh, Brady, when you cook at lunch just like that, there's no other title we can give you. Josh and Lyle can attest for this. It was a fantastic meal.
It was great, but no offense, Brady. Blake, it was hot dogs and it was like pigs in a blanket.
Yeah,
it was still it was still fantastic nonetheless. Now, guys, we do have a special guest in the studio. We have Arizona State insider Jordan K. Jordan, welcome to the studio.
Thank you, Blake. Thank you for having me.
All right, guys. Now, before we do get started, we have some fun news right now. This episode is sponsored by SeatGeek. Now, if you head on over to SeatGeek.com, enter promo code Harris Highlights. Now, that's Harris Highlights, no space, just one word, and you'll get $20 off your first order. We talked about this last week, but Josh's folks, they have already used the promo code for the USC-Arizona State game, so we're saving them $20. Nothing better than saving fellow Mr. and Mrs. Schaefer some money.
Yep. They're doing a good thing coming out here for the USC Arizona State game. So, I don't know who they're going to root for, but they'll figure it out once they get here. But they did use that promotion code at Harris Highlights. So,
very exciting to see. And guys, we are also doing a giveaway this week. A fun giveaway. We do like that. We're going to be giving away a Pro Football Focus subscription. Now, I know what you guys are thinking. Brady's over there going crazy right now. Pro Football Focus, that probably sounds familiar, and it probably does because it goes in depth and gives you NFL player grades, position ranks, as well as fantasy projections, rankings, and tools. They also have tons of NFL draft coverage, and on top of that, lots of great articles as well. Their analysts spend over 50 hours per game. Yes, 50 hours per game, generating 140 plus data points on every single play, generating unrivaled player grade metrics and data-driven predictions. This site truly does it all. Now, guys, unrivaled player grade metrics and data-driven predictions, that sounds a lot really high-tech. Brady, I'm sure that's more up your alley, but hey, that's still some good stuff. And we're going to be giving away a free subscription. Now, I know you're thinking, how can I win this awesome prize? Well, this is what you got to do. Go to Twitter, follow me, and then send me a message saying why you want the subscription, what you do with it, or just, why you think you're the most worthy of this awesome, awesome package. Well, guys, that's out of the way. College football is officially back, and we're going to kick things off by going to the Big 12. Now, guys, Big 12, very interesting conference this year. Lots of teams that can do some damage, but I feel like we're all going to have maybe the same favorite. But when it comes to the dark horse team, I feel like this can get a little fun. We're all going to have different picks. So who wants to get Big 12 underway this week?
I'll go ahead and get things started, Blake. I think that I'm a big fan of Mason Rudolph. I'm a big fan of the offense that they have in Stillwater, Oklahoma. So I'm going to go with Oklahoma State. I think this team was very impressive the way they ended the season last year. I think they were a game or two away from being in the national spotlight, possibly even in playoff contention. And this year, this is a team that I think is going to end up finishing in the top 5 or 6 teams in the country, maybe even a playoff position. I think everyone's looking at Oklahoma. I'm not saying Oklahoma State's getting slept on, but I do think a lot of people are looking at Baker Mayfield rather than Mason Rudolph in terms of who in the Big 12 can compete for a Heisman Trophy, and my pick would be Mason Rudolph. But I do think that Baker Mayfield at OU has got a good team around him, but they did lose a lot, and I know that's something we talked about last week when we looked at the Heisman race. So that's why I think Oklahoma is going to fall to Oklahoma State this year, and I do have the Cowboys taking the Big 12 championship trophy back to Stillwater.
Oklahoma State's definitely my favorite, too. You already touched on it with James Washington, maybe the best receiver in the country, Mason Rudolph, possibly the best quarterback in the country. And then you look at Oklahoma. Yeah, they still have Baker Mayfield, but after losing their two stud running backs in Samaje Perine and Joe Mixon, as well as Dede Westbrook, who was a Heisman finalist last year, I think they've lost too much. I think they're going to finish around 9-3, maybe even 8-4. But I think Oklahoma State is the clear front runner in the Big 12.
I think it's pretty obvious that Oklahoma and Oklahoma State are the big two there in the Big 12 because, like you said, Lyle, a lot of returning starters for both teams. But my team I'm going to pick for the Big 12 is one that is sort of under the radar and has been for the last couple of years, and that's TCU. I mean, they have Kenny Hill, their quarterback right now, the Texas A&M transfer. He's a great athlete, great quarterback, played very well at Texas A&M. Came to TCU, just a little different area in Texas, but I think he could do a good job in leading this TCU team.
That's a bold prediction, Brady. But like Josh and Lyle, I think I'm going to go with Oklahoma State. Remember, guys, if they didn't lose on a Hail Mary that was kind of controversial to Central Michigan, that team is 10-2 going into the bowl play. So that could be a major game changer, and they're bringing back Mason Rudolph and James Washington. That team's going to be good, and I don't, like Lyle said, with the losses that Oklahoma has, I don't think they're going to be the same team. They've got a tough schedule. They got to go to Ohio State. I just don't see it for the Sooners this year.
I mean, we've all pretty much touched up on everything. I think Oklahoma State should be the clear-cut favorite. They do got to go to Texas and West Virginia. They do have a home game versus Oklahoma. I think they might lose one of those games. I don't know if they can go undefeated. But Oklahoma, I know Lyle touched up on it. They lost a lot of talent. And as Jordan just mentioned as well, they do have to play Ohio State, and then you got Oklahoma State and Texas. I could see Oklahoma maybe going like 9-3 or something like that. I feel like this is Oklahoma State's division to lose. And like once again with Jordan, they're a Hail Mary away from going 10-2 last year. So they could have made a push for that college football playoff. I think they might make a push for that spot this year. I'm really high on Mason Rudolph. Josh is really high on James Washington. It'll be interesting to see. Brady, I do like the TCU pick. That's very bold, just like your Heisman sleeper pick, which we will get to that later, I'm sure.
I'll tell you this. Kenny Hill had 3,200 passing yards this past year and 18 touchdowns.
That's pretty good. Now, really quickly, I want to get to my two sleeper teams, and that's West Virginia and Kansas State. Number one, West Virginia. Now, I'm going to base this off of the Virginia Tech game, which is the first week of the season, which is going to be arguably one of the top 2 or 3 games of the week. If they win that game, I think they go 10-2 on the year. If they lose it, I think they go 9-3. So do they have what it takes to compete with Oklahoma State? I'm not entirely sure. Also, another team I want to talk about, Kansas State. They ended the season on a 4-game winning streak last year. They were 5-1 at home. They finished 4th in the Big 12 when it came to conference play. Returning a lot of talent, but like you said, you got to compete with Oklahoma State, Oklahoma. But another thing about this Big 12, I feel like aside from Kansas and Iowa State, any of these games can be a trap game for any of these teams. I mean, you still got Texas, you got Baylor, Texas Tech, TCU. As we all know, the Big 12 is infamously known for lots of points and no defense. So when you got no defense going on and you get into a shootout, Texas Tech, if they're playing, like West Virginia, Oklahoma State, they can outscore them 70-65 and upset them. So anything can happen in the Big 12. I think all these teams are going to compete. Like I said, aside from Kansas and Iowa State, that's going to be a battle for who's going to get last and second to last. But it's definitely going to be exciting. And I don't know, because remember we talked about this earlier, I think the Big 12 does have a title game. Do we know this?
They do have a title game.
They do have a title game, so that'll be interesting to see. But hopefully it'll help sort everything out. But Oklahoma State looks like it's the consensus pick, and TCU is Brady's pick as well. So very interesting. Got to be bold. Hook 'em horns or frogs or whatever they are. All right, guys, now it's time for Josh's. Josh is definitely going to be excited about this one because we are switching to the Big Ten. Now, guys, lots of good teams in the Big Ten. Who comes out on top?
Ooh, the Big Ten is such an interesting conference. I think there are a lot of really good teams in it. I like to watch Nebraska. I think Michigan is going to be a team that can contend. But right now I'm looking at the Big Two, and I think that's going to be the Wisconsin Badgers, and I think that's going to be the Ohio State Buckeyes. My pick in this one, I've got to go with those guys in Columbus. I think the Buckeyes are the best team in this conference. Now, don't get me wrong. I think somebody's going to upset them this year, and I think it's going to be a conference opponent. I think, and I don't think it's going to be a team like Wisconsin or Michigan. I think we could see a couple other teams possibly take them down as well. Brady, heads up, spoiler alert, it's not going to be Indiana. I'm sorry.
Man.
Yeah, so I'm sorry. I think that game's going to... I hope not, but I think it's probably going to get ugly this weekend. But I got to go with the Buckeyes. In terms of sleeper, Penn State. I'm a huge fan of McSorley. I'm a huge fan of Saquon Barkley. They've got a really good team at Penn State, too. But I'm going to go with the Buckeyes.
I mean, you're calling Penn State a sleeper? These guys were in the Rose Bowl last year.
That's true.
And
I'm not really a sleeper, but, you know.
They also have, like you said, Trace McSorley and Saquon Barkley, another dynamic duo this time at Penn State. Saquon Barkley, man, he's got to be arguably the best running back in the country. And then you have McSorley, who, if not for the great performance Sam Darnold had in that Rose Bowl game last year, everybody would have been talking about Trace McSorley. So I look at Penn State. They have their two best players back, and I think they're going to make a big run at the Big Ten this year.
I think the Ohio State Buckeyes have the clear-cut shot to win the Big Ten this year, because when you look at this team, it doesn't matter who they have returning, who they have coming up as a freshman, transfers, doesn't matter. You have Urban Meyer as your head coach, and you're going to have a very well-coached team. You could get 11 guys off the street and still win a game. And I think Ohio State just has that tradition, has that mentality, and they won't be beaten. Like we saw last year, they played very well. They lost the one game to Penn State. And then, we saw what happened with Clemson in the playoffs, losing 31-0. But they do open up the season against a very tough opponent in the Indiana Hoosiers on Thursday night. College game days there. In my sleeper team, in all honesty, I have two. I'm going to go with Michigan because, yes, they're an elite team, but they did lose a lot. I think, Lyle, we talked about this. They lost like 6 or 7 of their starters from this last year. Michigan did. So, Jabril Peppers, Taco Charlton, just to name a few.
Delano Hill, Chris Wormley, Glasgow. They're going to be replacing a lot of guys on defense. And on offense, too, you lose Amara Darbo, you lose J.U. Chesson, and you lose Jake Butt, your 3 best weapons on offense.
And Jabril Peppers, you could throw them both ways as well. But I'm saying they're a sleeper team because I picked them as my sleeper, their quarterback as my sleeper Heisman pick. And also, in all honesty, not being a homer, I have the Indiana Hoosiers as a sleeper team, potentially winning 7 or 8 games.
See, I agree with you on the Ohio State pick. With J.T. Barrett and kind of a rebuilt Ohio State team, made it all the way to the college football playoff last year. Obviously, they're losing some key pieces from that secondary, but Urban Meyer is a phenomenal coach, and he's bringing a quarterback back. They're just reloading. They're not rebuilding, and I think Ohio State is going to take it. But for my sleeper pick, I don't really know if this is a sleeper, but I know Blake's going to touch on it a little bit. Wisconsin Badgers. A very easy schedule, and they have got a good team up there in Wisconsin.
All right, guys, now it's time to have some fun. I'm going to start breaking y'all minds right now. It's going to get crazy in the studio, so let's get these things underway. I got Penn State easily taking the East. They're obviously returning a lot of talent. If they brought Godwin back, I think they'd have the best quarterback, running back, wide receiver trio in the country. Arguably, they still have the top 5 quarterback, running back duo in the country. A lot of talent returning. Now, I do believe that Michigan or Ohio State game, they drop one of them. I don't think they drop both, but I don't think they win both. And they don't play Wisconsin, which is huge for their schedule. I think they go 11-1 and earn a spot in the college football playoff. Now, this is when things get interesting, and you guys are probably going to lose your minds. I'm ready to have it, guys. I think Ohio State potentially can go 8-4. I think they'll probably most likely finish 9-3, but here's why. I touched up on it when we were talking about the Big 12. They do got to play Oklahoma. Granted, it is at home, but Oklahoma is going to be a top 10 team in that game, and who knows what they're going to be bringing out with Baker Mayfield. Penn State, I don't know about that one. It is, once again, at home, which is an advantage for Ohio State. But as we've seen, Penn State, they don't shy away from big road games. They can handle it whenever they want. And then, of course, they got to go to Nebraska, which Josh can agree probably has one of not the best fan bases in college football, one of the best fan bases in all of sports.
Yep.
I believe they have like a sellout streak of 364?
54.
354.
Being a little generous. That goes back to the 60s?
1966.
Which is
Unreal.
It's unreal. So that's going to definitely be a tough game, especially with Ohio State coming in. And they got to play at Michigan, which are all going to be tough games. Lyle mentioned it as well. Ohio State has lost a lot of talent, especially on defense. And JT Barrett, what we saw in that Clemson game is very, very, very shaky. Sure, he's a great quarterback, but Ohio State, I'm not so sure about them. Now, guys, also at Michigan, I think Michigan might actually be worse than Ohio State. I think they lost more talent, especially on the offensive end. Ooh, man, did they lose a lot, and especially with Jabril Peppers and just all those defensive backs they lost as well. And they got a tough schedule. They got Florida week 1, which, by the way, did you guys see those Florida-Michigan uniforms they unveiled today?
I did.
Josh, I know you're probably the most strict when it comes to unis. Those Michigan yellows, what do you think about them quickly?
Maize, Blake. Maize.
It's maize.
Oh,
yes,
it's
technically.
maize. Okay.
So, I'm a huge fan of alternate uniforms, especially when it's staying within the color scheme. And when it comes down to a team with classic uniforms and a tradition second to pretty much nobody, I am a huge fan of that never really changing. If you want to alter things a little bit, that's fine. Michigan has played around with the little very subtle changes. USC's tampered with that. So has Ohio State. Bama, not so much. Penn State, not so much. I get it. I love them, dude. I think they look so cool. I think they're really cool. You guys know I'm an SC guy. I would love to see SC come out with something like that. Maybe not in their gold. I think gold from head to toe in SC colors would look kind of like bananas. I know ASU's had a couple uniforms like that way in the past that they got blown out when they wore them, so they were never seen again. I would like to see USC come out with an alternate uniform similar to Michigan's, though, to some extent. I think that would be great, and I think a lot of teams should do that. But the very subtle changing is what I like. I think Michigan looks great.
I think this game will kind of represent the Thursdays in the NFL this past season. It looks like a color rush.
I was going to say the same thing.
You have the all maize and you have the all gator blue. And the gator blue is really cool because it has metallic orange stripes on the side. I really like the simplistic design of the Gators uniforms.
And I do like the white helmets as well. So that's going to definitely be a cool little thing to see. Now, guys, this is when we truly go nuts, go crazy. But I got Wisconsin going undefeated this year. And at worst, I have them going 11-1. And this is why. Jordan kind of briefly touched up on it, but let's go more in depth. I put down their 3 toughest games on the schedule. First one, at BYU. I don't really know if you can call it a tough game. Those Mormons are going to be routed up, and it's going to be a great game. Hopefully the game doesn't go into overtime, because once it strikes midnight, they all got to leave and get back to their dorms. At Nebraska, we just mentioned it a few minutes ago, a tough place to play, a very tough place to play, and they're home versus Michigan. So obviously they can lose these 3, they can lose 2, but they have the potential to go undefeated, because the rest of their schedule, guys, Utah State, Florida Atlantic, Northwestern, Purdue, Maryland, the big old powerhouse that is Indiana, Iowa, and Minnesota. Now, naturally, anything can happen in college football. They can drop any one of those games, but I don't see them doing that. I feel like Wisconsin, every year, they kind of just float around the top 10, it seems like. They're always like kind of in the 7, 8, 9, 10 range, but they never do anything more. I think this is finally the year where they make the step up. And I'll tell you one thing. That is going to be a darn good Penn State-Wisconsin Big Ten championship game in Indy. That is going to be a phenomenal game. Pretty much, essentially, whoever wins that is going to earn their spot in the college football playoff.
Yeah, I think if we get to that point again and we see that type of championship game in the Big Ten, I think this is something that hopefully, of course, still got a long way to go, but I think it's something that we could remember for a long time.
Do you guys all agree that the Big Ten is the only conference that could get 2 teams into the college football playoff?
I thought it could have been this way last year, and I think it could be again this way this year too. Yeah,
it's definitely going to be exciting to see. But I do believe, and now this is if Wisconsin going into the game is undefeated. I feel if they have 1 loss, they lose to Penn State might get the edge. But who knows? We'll have to wait and see. I feel none of that should matter. I want to see the 4 best teams in the college football playoff, whether that means they have 2 losses or whatever. Hopefully they can get it right. But guys, it is officially time now. Moving on to the Pac-12. This should be fun. Guys, I mean, I think we're all going to have similar answers here, but we might not. You know, everyone has their own bold predictions, like Wilson Spade being the Heisman dark horse and TCU taking the Big 12. But hey, that's okay. That's what the point of this show is for. Josh, what do you got in the Pac-12 this year?
Well, if I'm looking at the Pac-12 South, there's no competition. The Trojans are going to run away with it. I don't think there's really any competition in the Pac-12 South for the Trojans. I know a lot of people think UCLA is going to have a rebound season. I think they'll be better than 4-8, but I think the Bruins don't have it. Looking at the rest of the Pac-12 South, I don't think there's anybody that can contend with USC. However, I do have Arizona State as a potential sleeper pick in the South. Am I saying they're going to win it? No way. There's no way they win the Pac-12 South. There's no way they compete for a Pac-12 championship. But I think they're going to turn some heads in the Pac-12 South. Looking at the North, I think Stanford's a good team. I think Oregon could be good. There are a lot of question marks and a lot of problems that I have with Oregon's team, but I do like a lot of aspects of them. It's USC and UW. For me, there's no doubt about it. There's a few teams that may throw in an upset against UW or USC, but when it comes down to it, it's the Trojans and the Huskies in the Pac-12 championship.
I think you took the words right out of my mouth. USC, you look right at Sam Darnold and everything he did last year. He's going to be coming back for his sophomore season, even more polished, potential number 1 pick in this year's upcoming draft. And I've said it a bunch of times, until I see him make a plethora of mistakes over and over, which I haven't seen, I don't see any reason USC doesn't run away with that Pac-12 South. And then in the North, you got Washington. Yeah, they lost a lot of guys on defense, but they still have Azim Victor coming back, who is maybe their best defensive player. He's returning from an injury. You have Taylor Rapp, who was the freshman defensive player of the year. And then you have Vita Vea up on the defensive front on the front four. So I think you look at Washington along with Jake Browning and Myles Gaskin. You took it right out of my mouth, Josh. I think we'll see a Pac-12 championship of the Trojans and the Huskies.
I mean, we're going to go 3 for 3 here, guys. I say it's going to be Trojans, Huskies here. But, Josh, you mentioned USC a minute ago. Sam Darnold, I mean, he's, I think, everybody's clear-cut front-runner for the Heisman for this season. But what you don't really look at is the other weapons he has around him. Yes, he lost Juju. Yes, he lost Adoree. But it's USC.
Yeah.
Come on. It doesn't matter. Like I said, similar to Ohio State, it doesn't matter who you have. You're going to get a guy like a Chris Hogan on the Patriots this last year. He'll step in a game, score 3 touchdowns, and lead your team to a win. Not to mention Rojo. You got him in the backfield. He's a great running back. He's been on some sleeper lists for some Heismans, too, further down. But, I mean, he's a good player to watch out for. He's a sleeper running back for a top one in the country.
Yeah, SC lost Darius Rogers and Juju Smith at receiver, but I do think that they are locked and loaded at that position. And then additionally, when you have Rojo in the backfield, I mean, for some, I know USC's broadcaster, Pete Arbogast, he calls him the breeze. I mean, and it's true. And then they've got a couple other running backs who they can go to as well, like Aka Cedric Ware. So I think it's the Trojans and the Huskies because Washington, wherever they're losing people, they're just reloading as well.
Yeah, you guys have pretty much said everything about USC that needs to be said, but I'm going to look right under them in the South with Utah. They just made a pretty big change at quarterback, getting rid of Troy Williams, at least for the opener, and going with Tyler Huntley. People are going crazy about it, saying that, I don't know, that Utah's kind of fallen off because why would you not give the starting job to Troy Williams? But maybe Kyle Whittingham knows something that we don't. Maybe this Tyler Huntley kid is just some phenom that's going to all of a sudden take Utah out of obscurity and bring them up into a mainstay in the top 25. I don't know. Behind them in the South, UCLA, I just don't think they have much talent around Josh Rosen. Rosen's probably just 1 or 2 games he could go off and just kind of lead into an upset, but that's really doubtful. ASU, as you guys have mentioned, I think I would put them as my sleeper. They have so many skill players that really if the defense can hold up, there's no stopping the offense. And in the North, Lyle really touched on Washington. I like Washington State. Luke Falk could throw for 5,000 yards this year, so that's a subplot. And Stanford has a quarterback that has started just 6 games, so I don't think it's like David Shaw does not have Kevin Hogan like he has for the past couple of years.
I mean, I definitely think it's going to be Washington and USC. I'm looking right now at the South. Colorado, they took the conference last year, which, I mean, they did earn it. They should.
South. They took the
or
South.
The South, that's what I meant. They earned it, but they should not have been in that game because they truly weren't the best team. I do believe Arizona State is a sleeper, but I feel like they can go 9-3, they can go 6-6, they can go 5-7. We saw it last year; they went 5-1. They have the potential to win games. I remember Jordan. We were talking earlier, and he said it perfectly. Arizona State's schedule is like broken into 3 sections. Quickly, once again, explain that.
So their first 4 games are pretty easy. They have New Mexico State, Texas Tech, San Diego State, and Oregon. Most of those should be wins, but then after that, it gets a little tougher. They start playing some I guess, much better teams in the Pac-12. They go at Stanford versus Washington, at Utah versus USC. If they can pick up one win from there, I think Todd Graham and every ASU fan is going to consider that a success. And then to end their season, they have Colorado at Sun Devil Stadium. They travel to the Rose Bowl to play UCLA. They go to Corvallis against Oregon State, and they get the Territorial Cup in Tempe against Arizona. All those could be winnable games, so really their season is make or break on the last 4 games. It's very possible that they could head into that Colorado game 4-4, and so it's really what they do in that last stretch that's really going to be the defining, I guess, run of this season.
It'll definitely be interesting to see. Now, really quickly, some sleepers I want to talk about really quickly. The first one's Stanford. Now, I feel like Stanford last year was probably the most underrated 10-win team in the last few years. It seemed like, well, I mean, they won 6 in a row to end the year, so they were 4-3 at one point, but it was like, okay, at the beginning of the year, what's going on with Stanford? And then just slowly but surely, they're winning games one by one, not too flashy, and they finished the season 10-3. Their schedule is very tough, though. They do have USC. They do have Washington State. They do have Washington. They do have Notre Dame, which I still don't know what kind of Notre Dame we're going to see. Yeah. Notre Dame could be a very good team. That could be a very tough game. And you also got like an Oregon and a game at Utah, which are 2 tough games as well.
I was going to go with my sleeper team because I didn't mention one because I said the 2 teams that I thought were going to be there. And Blake, you said their name a second ago, and that's Oregon.
Yep.
I mean, you have Willie Taggart, the new head coach there, Justin Herbert, the quarterback there, who you're the starting quarterback for Oregon. You're also the head of the fishing club at Oregon.
That's fantastic.
So he's a very diversified guy there up in Eugene. But I think Oregon, yes, they went 4-8 this past year. New coaching staff. They always have a lot of speed. I think Oregon's a team who's a sleeper team to watch out for in the Pac-12.
I like that one too. And also another one, Washington State. I mean, Washington State, we saw it last year when they cracked the top 25. Well, first I'm thinking Washington State, because it was just a few years ago it seemed where they were literally one of the worst teams in the entire country. They quickly turned that program around. At one point they were 8-2. Then they lost, 3 games in a row, and they finished the season 8-5 with a very, very disappointing end to the season. But Jordan touched up on it. Luke Falk can potentially throw for 5,000 yards. Definitely one of the top 5 quarterbacks in not the Pac-12, in all of college football, I feel. It could be a good draft selection next year. So Washington State, they do got Boise State, which could be a tough game. Then you got USC, Stanford, at Oregon, Utah, Washington. So they do have some tough games there. But Washington, I mean, just due to the fact with how easy their schedule is, the fact that their first 3 games of the year, if I can't remember precisely, but I believe it's Rutgers, Fresno State, and I think like Montana State, one of those ones, the easiest 3 games, and they do not play USC at all. So Washington, they lucked out. I feel like their schedule is going to benefit them, but I still want to see a USC-Washington rematch. I know for a fact that Washington, the players, the coaches, and the fans, and the entire nation wanted a rematch in that Pac-12 title game because Washington lost their first game of the year to USC. They were hungry. They wanted to beat them again. I'm sure USC wanted to beat them for a second time, so hopefully this year we can finally get that rematch. But guys, those are all our predictions for the Power 5 schools. Now let's go right now to a non-Power 5 school. What are some teams you feel can make a solid, quiet push?
Now, I know some teams that we all want to talk about and we're all probably going to agree with, so I'm just going to skip over some of those. But I'm going to go with Wyoming. I think Wyoming, of course, with Josh Allen at quarterback, this is another guy who's probably top 5 quarterbacks in the country. And if he's not necessarily top 5 college quarterbacks, this guy is a top 5 quarterback going into the NFL draft.
And I believe Lyle has him as his projected number 1 overall pick in next year's draft.
I think he's got a real chance too.
Yeah, and he's a fantastic player, and unfortunately, I don't think he's going to get the respect that he deserves simply because he's at a school like Wyoming, which is unfortunate, but he's not a Power 5 school. He reminds me a lot, maybe not of his play style, but I don't want to say the type of player that he is because I feel like that contradicts what I just said, but I guess the situation he's put in reminds me a lot of Kellen Moore at Boise State, and another very good quarterback who I think a lot of people love to watch, but maybe on the national spotlight didn't get the attention he deserves. So I'm a huge fan of Josh Allen, and I think Wyoming could be a potential sleeper team. I think they'll be relevant in the top 20, the top 25, maybe similar to Western Michigan last year.
Josh, that's one of the best comparisons I've heard about him in a very long time is to Kellen Moore. It's because they're playing in a similar conference, they're playing similar styles and on a similar team. I really like that comparison.
I think the better comparison is Carson Wentz.
That's what I was
Kellen
gonna say.
Moore was undrafted. Josh Allen's got a chance to go top 5. Carson Wentz, despite him playing at a school like North Dakota State, he still went number 2 overall. He's a pocket passer, same way Josh Allen is. He has a big arm. I think that's no disrespect to Kellen Moore. He was great at Boise State, but I think that's the better comparison.
Well, the good thing about Josh Allen and Wyoming, they do have a good Week 1 matchup at Iowa. I believe it's going to be ESPN or one of those channels so everyone can get to see. If Josh Allen can come and perform in that game and upset Iowa, then everyone's going to get talking. But I am high on Wyoming as well. Looking at their schedule, we just mentioned the Iowa game. They do get Oregon at home, which I feel like they can win. And then at Boise State on the, Smurf turf you guys like to refer to as. So Wyoming does have a few games. I'm sure this one is all in our list right now, but that's South Florida. And guys, I feel like South Florida is going to be exactly like Western Michigan of last year, and they're going to go undefeated in the regular season. They have arguably one of the easiest schedules in the country with San Jose State, Stony Brook, UConn, Illinois, Temple, East Carolina, UMass, Tulane, Cincinnati, Houston, Tulsa, and Central Florida. I can see them winning all those games and potentially maybe cracking the top 8 or 9. I know Western Michigan didn't get that high, even though, as you all know, I thought they should have been. I feel like they earned that. But South Florida's one. Another one I really want to touch up on really quick, that is Troy. Troy, I kind of gave them a little grief last year, especially when they played Clemson, and they showed that they belonged in that game. The only 2 tough games they have this year, both on the road, granted, at Boise State, which I believe is winnable, at LSU, I don't think they have what it takes to go to Death Valley and win that game, but I can see Troy going either 11-1 or maybe 10-2.
My sleeper team I'm going to go with it's going to come from the MAC, but it's not going to be the one who people will usually think of it. I'm going to go with Toledo.
Ooh.
Because this past season, I believe they went 9-4, and they're returning their quarterback, Logan Woodside, who last year passed for 4,100 yards.
Nice.
45 touchdowns.
Whoa.
9 interceptions.
Wow.
And tied the longest play of the season last year, 98-yard touchdowns.
Nice.
Against LSU.
I like that pick. Toledo. Huh.
Toledo.
Bold. I like it. Yeah. One more really quickly I want to touch up on. That's Appalachian State, guys. I feel like this team, now I did look it up, they do have the second easiest schedule in the country. Their second toughest game is against Wake Forest. Now, if Wake Forest is your second hardest game of the year, that's saying something. I mean, they got Ohio, Savannah State, Texas State, New Mexico State, Idaho, Coastal Carolina, UMass, Louisiana Monroe, Georgia Southern, Georgia State, and Louisiana Lafayette. Now, granted, their first game of the season is at Georgia, which is not going to be an easy task. My prediction is that they do lose. However, I do think they'll be competitive. But aside from that game, this team is going to go 11-1 and finish in the top 25, which is still 10 years later, even after that Michigan game. Just mentioning Appalachian State in the top 25 sounds crazy. Even though now they are, FBS D1, and they do get some good recruits, but still, it still seems funny to say that Appalachian State is a very good team. All right, thanks, guys, for your input. That was fantastic. But, Brady, we did all of those right now. I believe it is time for the Q&A. I hope we got some good questions this week.
I think this is a very good week of questions. I know they say this all the time, but I promise you guys, this is going to be an entertaining one.
Perfect.
Because there's not a lot of college football going on. Yes, you have everything upcoming. A lot of people want to know our predictions for the Heismans and for the playoffs and each conference, but we just did those. We'll do the playoffs and Heisman in the next couple of weeks or so, but these are some entertaining ones. So we'll start off with this one, guys. If you could move one team to a different conference than from where they are now, what team would it be?
I think that this is something that would be up for debate due to who would be the best. But for me personally, I think that Houston needs to be competing in a better conference. I think the Big 12 needs to expand to include a few more teams, potentially Houston and Boise State. But I'm thinking Houston to the Big 12. I think that would be a great I think they complement each other very well. So I'm going to say Houston to the Big 12.
12 teams in the Big 12 again. Make it happen.
Yep.
I'm going to go with Notre Dame to the ACC since they already play 5 ACC games a year. As long as they get to keep their scheduling rights where all their home games are on NBC, I say move them to a conference. Those games against Stanford, they're going to renew their rivalry with Michigan. You could have those as your early season games, your non-conference games, and then play a bunch of ACC teams.
I'm going to stick with Notre Dame, but I'm going to move them to a different conference. I feel like they should be in the Big Ten. Take Rutgers to FCS or D3 or back to high school. It doesn't matter. I mean, Notre Dame in the Big Ten could be a great fit because they're in the area. They're in Indiana with Purdue and IU, right next to Northwestern and all these Big Ten teams. So I think Notre Dame in the Big Ten would be a good one. And Lyle, I don't blame you. I don't want to get rid of Mike Tirico in those game calls either.
See, I was just going to go with Boise State to the Big 12, kind of get expand the Big 12 to some different regions. But then Josh's idea of putting Houston in there too and finally making the Big 12 12 teams again, nothing irritates me more than that the Big 10 has 14 teams and the Big 12 has 10 teams. Let's get that fixed and let's put Boise State and Houston in the Big 12.
And it makes perfect sense, too. I
mean,
think it really makes perfect sense.
It still confuses me to this day, though, how it's still like that. Who knows? But those are all good picks. I mean, those are mine as well. But to switch things up a bit, I think BYU needs to go somewhere. I mean, they're independent right now. I don't know where you put them, though. That's the thing. They're over there in Utah. Would you move? I mean, would you move them to what, the Big 12? I guess.
You could. I mean,
I don't know where they
Boise State
go.
or Houston doesn't want to go to the Big 12, then you could put BYU in one of their places.
That's what I was thinking as well. But I think BYU, they need to move. I mean, like I said, I don't know about this, but if the Pac-12 were to expand and they were to take like Boise State and BYU, I think that could be an even more fun conference.
Yeah, that honestly wouldn't be a bad idea either. But what I think instead of taking BYU, which again I don't think is a bad idea, I wouldn't be surprised if the Pac-12 tried to get San Diego State. I believe they already compete in the Pac-12 for men's soccer. I believe. Don't take my word for that. I know a couple, like ASU and USC, do not have men's soccer teams, give or take. I think there's maybe one or maybe two schools that don't have anyone competing in the Pac-12 for men's soccer, and I know there are a few teams that don't have softball. I don't think San Diego State has a softball team. I don't believe they do. But I think that would be a good addition to the Pac-12 as well. And I think they could compete for the most part, too.
It would definitely be a good ad.
San Diego State is in the Pac-12 for soccer.
They are?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
All right, guys, next question. This is another good one. Where is the toughest place to play in college football?
Big house, hands down. 120,000 people, screaming fans. Doesn't get any tougher than that.
I'm going to say Death Valley, and the listeners and you guys can choose whichever one you want. I think it's a toss-up, which Death Valley. I think obviously Ohio State's up there. I think Penn State. I think Michigan. I think possibly Notre Dame as well. But I'm going either Clemson or LSU.
See, I'm going to go Death Valley at night and the LSU one. This article was published 2 years ago, and LSU had 71 wins and 11 losses. That's domination.
Ooh, that is good. Those are all some good picks. I mean, you can't go wrong with any sort of SEC school. Brady.
I'm going to go with a Big Ten school, though. I'm going to go with Wisconsin because they have one of the coolest environments there. They got jump around. Josh, are you jumping?
Oh,
Can
no.
if you want me to.
Oh, no. It's midnight right now, and it's way too late for this. And he's currently jumping around. That is an awesome one, though.
It really is because Wisconsin's one of those places in the Big Ten where there really isn't that much to do. So what do you do in Wisconsin? You either go to Wisconsin games or you go to...
Eat cheese.
Well,
And you sit around and watch
cheese,
that 70s show.
or you go to Packers games.
There
But
you
don't
go.
too.
You know what? There's one more team that I want to throw out there, and I think when this team is good and when you get a quality opponent in there, there's one team that I think you could throw in, and that is the Big Orange Faithful in Knoxville, Tennessee. Neyland Stadium on Rocky Top.
Oh, it's way too late for this, guys, right now. Lyle just took a little power nap in studio, so it just knows how late it is. Brady, what's the next question we got?
Next question for you. I want to let Rocky Top just start running underneath the entire podcast. It's a great song.
On loop.
Who has a better chance of making the playoffs, Washington, Wisconsin, or Oklahoma State?
See, now this is a fantastic question and a very difficult question. Washington, I feel out of the three teams, they're the least qualified, but I feel they have the best chance due to their insanely easy schedule. Wisconsin, it all comes down to if they can beat Penn State in that Big Ten game. And Oklahoma State, it all comes down to if they can spare one loss, because I think if they have two losses, there's no way they make it in. But that's a great question, whoever made that one was.
I agree with you about UW because I think their best test of the season, I do think Stanford's going to play them tough. I think their best test of the season will come in the Pac-12 championship if they face off with USC, and I hope they do. Additionally, I think Oklahoma State actually might be the best team on that list. Again, I'm a huge fan of their offense. We don't need to go back into that. But I think all of those teams do have a genuine chance to get in, but I'm going to go with the Cowboys.
I'm going to go Oklahoma State as well. I think the competition in the Big 12 isn't good enough for them to not make that playoff if everything goes as planned. UW does have an easy schedule, but I think SC is going to take care of them if they face off in that Pac-12 title game.
I'm going to go with Wisconsin on this one because, Blake, you said it earlier. They have a very easy schedule, and you projected them to go undefeated, maybe losing one game. So I think Wisconsin could be that one team to just sneak in there, very quietly fly under the radar and make the playoffs. And if not the playoffs, then a New Year's Six.
Yeah, and like we mentioned, I kind of think we all think that the Big Ten has the best chance to get 2 teams in. So why not pick a Big Ten team? If Blake thinks that Wisconsin's going undefeated, then really all they got to do is win the Big Ten championship and they're in. So I would take Wisconsin if all it takes is one game.
Boom. What do we got next?
Next question we have for us. Will you guys watch College Game Day this week?
Of course.
Yes.
Yes.
Now, technically, are there 2 college game days?
I think
there is
there are
one on
2.
Thursday.
There's one on Thursday in Bloomington at the IU Ohio State game, but I believe there has to be one on Saturday.
I believe there's one in Georgia for the Alabama-Florida State game.
That makes sense.
All right. What do we got next?
Well, Blake, what about one last thing for College Game Day?
Oh, of course.
You can take this. Go ahead.
No, bro, Brady, this is all your idea.
I'll take it.
You take it.
All right. Well, we have listeners all across the country. College Game Day travels, well, all across the country. And if you, one of our listeners, go to College Game Day or go to a game that's on national TV, and you bring a sign that says Harris highlights, don't sleep on Chattanooga, Zane for Heisman, mock the world. I mean, any of our sayings or our jokes on this show, and you get a picture of it or you get a picture of you on TV or on College Game Day, we're going to bring you on this show. Like, we're not going to fly you all the way out to Arizona, but we'll pick up the phone when you call in and we'll bring you on this show.
I love it. That's a great idea. And I'm sure it's got to happen at one point. As you mentioned, game days all over the country. One of our listeners has to be near one. I can't take it. I'm sorry. Just looking at Lyle over there about to pass out. It's great. It makes me feel so bad. Don't worry, Lyle. We'll wrap this up soon, bud. We got this. Brady, next question, please.
Next question. Does DeAndre Francois take the next step and cement himself as the best quarterback in the ACC? And does he have the chance to win a Heisman?
He has to overtake Lamar Jackson first. Yes, I sound like a walker from the Walking Dead. No, I mean I feel like he does have to overtake Lamar Jackson. The second half Lamar Jackson had last year has me very iffy on him, so I don't know if he can compete with the first half he did. So I feel like it's Lamar's to lose. But as a Heisman contender, if he can knock down Alabama week 1, I believe he's up there in the Heisman contention.
I agree with you. I think very funny. I think he competes with Lamar for the best quarterback in the ACC, and I think he takes a big jump into his sophomore year from his freshman year. I don't think he has a chance at the Heisman. I think there's too many other good quarterbacks and running backs around the country.
I think that he's going to implement himself as the best up-and-coming quarterback in the ACC. I don't think he's going to compete for a Heisman Trophy, though. I asked Justin last episode to make his case for Francois, and I think he made a great case for him, and I think he's a great quarterback. But I think he's not quite there yet, but he will get there.
I mean, last year when Deshaun Watson beat Lamar Jackson, many thought that Deshaun was the better quarterback. So if Francois can go in and beat Jackson, that might elevate him to the best quarterback in the ACC. And as for his Heisman, the Heisman is all about getting your Heisman moment, and Francois has plenty of opportunities to do that, and he'll get started week 1 with Alabama. A win there could really start his case strong.
All right, Brady, what do we got next?
We got a couple questions left. How legit is Colorado State, and do they have a chance of beating Colorado?
I mean, they got a legit chance of beating Colorado. Their stadium's awesome, but other than that, no.
Yeah, I think they. I second that about the stadium. Uniforms, not so much. The sleeves with those horns really bother me. I don't know what it is, but I think they do have a legit chance of beating Colorado. I don't think they are a super legit team, but I think they've got a solid chance at beating the Buffs.
All right, let's do some rapid refire right now, or rapid fire, I should say.
Rapid refire?
I don't know. Sorry, I'm just used to working at Blaze Pizza.
Ooh, yum. Not an endorsement.
Yeah.
All right, rapid fire, Blake. Rapid fire. Best mascot in all of college sports. College football.
And again, are we talking about the name, like the
No,
team
like the
name,
actual
or the actual
mascot.
You know, I think you could throw up a bunch, but all bias aside, I'm a huge fan of Sparky the Sun Devil. I think he's awesome, and I think the duck is really corny, but he's hilarious. He's hilarious, but I love Sparky.
Artie the Artichoke, Scottsdale Community College.
Why did that sound like something out of like East-West Bowl?
Yeah, I thought so
Artie
too.
Artichoke, Scottsdale Community College.
Well, I mean, if you wanted it, you could probably play for them.
I'm going to go with Michigan State, Sparty, Michigan State's mascot. Really cool. You got the buff Spartan costume. I think that's a really cool looking mascot.
I think he's on steroids.
Right there with you, Michigan State.
I mean, you can't go wrong with Stanford. It's a tree, and you can't go wrong with Syracuse because it's an orange.
Those are both terrible.
I know, but
Those
they're
are
so
both absolutely awful.
They're horrible, but they're great. Brady, what do we got next?
All right. Best regular uniform in college football. Not an alternate, but the best regular uniform.
Michigan, Ohio State, or USC.
Those are the three out of my mouth.
Yeah.
Like the original Notre Dame or Penn State.
You know what? Notre Dame. I'm throwing Notre Dame in there too. I want those 4. I'm choosing 4.
All right, Josh. This one, you're going to like this one. The question, yes, maybe, but who asked it? I think you're going to like this the best. This one comes from Alex Ovechkin's missing tooth.
Oh, that's a beautiful name.
You're a
That
big
is an
hockey guy.
I'm a big hockey guy. That's a beautiful name.
How many touchdowns will Chattanooga beat LSU by?
6.
I'm going to say 4.
3.
28
Touchdowns or points?
touchdowns.
Oh, jeez.
They're going to score 28 touchdowns, yet we still don't have video of the one field goal they scored against Alabama.
Actually, no, that's actually not true, Brady. I actually did find it. Someone posted the full game, and
In
I
the
did
archives?
find in the archives a video clip of that field goal. So Lyle's saying 28 touchdowns. So you're saying they don't cover the spread?
That's what I'm saying.
Oh, boy. But just really quickly, just a huge shout-out right now, guys. Not this upcoming week, but 2 weeks from right now, the Chattanooga Monks do travel to Death Valley to take on the LSU Tigers, a day in which the world will watch as Chattanooga mocks the world. They will upset the LSU. I mean, it's not really upset because Alabama upset Chattanooga last year, so LSU is just going to lose a regular game they should lose. Can't wait for that. I believe it's 7 Eastern, I want to say. I do believe it's on ESPN. Next week, we're going to hype that game up. But just a friendly reminder to mock that on your calendars.
GEAUX, go Chattanooga.
All right, Brady.
That was
we got,
loud, Josh.
Brady, we've got 3 minutes left. Let's answer as many questions as we can.
And
Let's go, guys.
I caught your mock that on your calendar. That was really clever, Blake.
Thanks, bro.
I don't think you guys did.
No, I just ignored it.
This is a good question. We'll save this for a different video. I'll ask you now, but we're not going to answer it. How many different D1 college football stadiums have you been to? Not individual games, but have you been to? We'll do that in a different video because it takes a while to think about. But here's this one. Will Lane Kiffin make his resurgence as a head coach at FAU and lead them to a success comparable to Temple or Tom Herman at Memphis?
Good one, Brady. Next.
Nope.
Who is the current head coach that has the ability to catch up to the level of Nick Saban?
Todd Graham.
I say Dabo Sweeney.
Urban Meyer.
I think he's up there.
I think he already is up there.
Yeah.
But I'm still going to say Urban Meyer.
Okay.
Jim McElwain.
Ooh.
Brian Kelly? Question mark?
No, I'll go with Jim Harbaugh.
Les Miles.
Oh.
Oh, jeez.
Oh.
Next. We got 2 minutes left,
Oh.
Brady.
How do you think Justin Herbert will do with the new coaching staff at Oregon, and how many wins do you think they'll get this year?
I think he'll have a great season, but I mean, I don't think he'll have the kind of season our friend Brady Vernon thinks in regards to him winning the Heisman. But hey, Justin Herbert, say hi at your next fishing club meeting for me, whatever it is. But do you?
Do you think Bo Scarborough should be considered a top running back in the league? Not the league, but in college football. And should he be considered for a Heisman?
He should be considered top 10. Heisman, we'll have to wait and see.
Agreed.
All right, last question. We can take a little bit of time. We have about 2 minutes left in the Q&A. Is Charles Woodson the best defensive college football player of all time?
I'm going to say either Charles Woodson or Ronnie Lott. I think Ronnie Lott was the Pac-12, I think, either their Centennial MVP or it was Defensive Player of the Century.
I believe
so
he
I'm going
was.
to go with Ronnie Lott. Ronnie Lott, Charles Woodson, very close second.
I say Desmond Howard. I mean, that guy won a Heisman. I know Woodson did too,
That's true.
but
That's true.
I'm going to go Deion Sanders or Manti Te'o.
Ooh,
Manti.
Whoa.
That guy was a stud. You guys like to hate on him because you're SC fans, but he was really good.
That was
No,
the
we don't-
closest defensive player to winning the Heisman since Howard.
We don't hate on him because he was a Notre Dame player. We
Yeah,
hated on him
his fake
because his girlfriend was really
blah,
mean.
blah, blah.
What do Blake Harris and Manti Te'o have in common? We both don't have girlfriends, so there you go. The one player I'm going to go with, now, not necessarily one of the best defensive players, though. At least in my time, I think the most dominant player, and that's Jadeveon Clowney. Jadeveon Clowney. What he did, especially in that Michigan game, is truly unreal. But the way he played, I remember there was talk of him sitting out his final season because everyone was like, well, he's the consensus #1 draft pick. Why play? So that was truly remarkable. He changed games. I don't know what his exact stats were, but the amount of tackles for loss that he had was truly unreal.
The best ever, though?
I didn't say best ever.
What did you say?
That was the question.
And he kind of did.
He said the
sit
best
out
in your
last
lifetime.
year.
I mean,
All right.
that is true.
Whatever.
I said most dominant.
All right, one question basing off this. Also, I don't know if any of you guys have seen this. Have any of you guys watched J.J. Watt, his film from Wisconsin?
Yeah,
He's up there, too.
That is true.
he's pretty incredible.
He just tore offenses apart.
Yeah.
And speaking of offenses, we're going to rephrase this last question. Who's the best offensive college football player of all time?
I honestly think you can make an argument for Tim Tebow.
I could agree with you, Lyle, because, I mean, that lefty jump pass was
Yeah.
great play.
You could throw in Tebow. You can throw in. I think it'd be hard. I think Bo Jackson's in there. I think Marcus Allen's in there. There's somebody I'm leaving out completely.
Reggie Bush.
See, Reggie Bush was one of the most explosive players I've ever seen in my entire life, but I don't think he was one of the best.
What about Vince Young?
Vince Young's up there because he was, especially in the early, I mean, not early 2000, mid 2005. That's right in the middle. Duh. In the mid 2000s, he was, I think, the first quarterback that started the dual threat quarterback for this next era. So, like Manny Wilkins at ASU. There's no comparison, but Manny Wilkins right now wouldn't be the quarterback that Manny Wilkins is if it wasn't for Vince Young and the way that he played at Texas. That's my hot take.
I don't know about best, but most exciting, Johnny Football.
He's exciting.
He was pretty fun to
It
watch.
was unreal.
I mean, you guys touched on, and it seems like it's been in the last 10, 15 years that we've had these players, so definitely some good ones. But I'm sorry, guys, you guys are all wrong. The greatest offensive player in NCAA football history, that's Zane Gonzalez. I mean, the best kicker of all time, the best offensive player of all time, Arizona State Sun Devil, no questions asked.
Technically, Blake, I hate to burst your bubble, but he's a defensive player because special teams goes with defense.
He scores points.
But he's also tackling on kickoffs.
Oh.
He's
All right, I got my answer for best offensive player of all time. Herschel Walker.
That's a good one, too. That's a good one, too.
Herschel Walker.
no, bro. That's a good pick though. But a lot of great questions. I believe we had over 100. Is that correct, Brady?
We had over 125.
Man, I wish we can answer each one.
I'm sorry, Joe Montana. Can we throw him in, too?
You can throw whoever you want.
Josh,
in,
you can throw whoever you want in.
Okay, well then I'm just gonna throw Joe Montana in the basket, and then when we pick names later, it'll be.
And
fun.
it is time for the pick'ems, the time of the show where we all either make our pick'ems look great or bad. We make some random ones.
Someone needs to wake Lyle up.
Yeah, somebody needs to wake
I'm good.
Lyle up over there. Guys, now before we get to the pick'ems really quickly, make sure you join the official Harris Highlights Pick'em League. Every week you can pick the winner of 10 matchups and compete with hundreds of viewers, but most importantly, you can compete with us. Well, when I say us, I mean Josh, Brady, and I, and I'm sure even Jordan K, because Lyle, are you in the league yet?
Okay, I'm going to sign up.
Oh my goodness, it starts in a few days and he's still not in the league, but that's okay. Whoever has the most points at the end of the year will receive a $25 gift card of their choosing. Now, guys, it's not as easy as you think. We currently have over 400 members that have signed up. That number is going up every day. So if you truly have what it takes, well, you're going to have to beat some of the best. The link to sign up is in the description. Now, guys, there were a few games last week. We did pick them all. And let this be like the way it is. We're all tied. We all got 4. Even though we didn't pick the same games every week, they were all different outcomes. So each one of us has 4. Let's start things underway. And hopefully one of us can take a commanding lead early in the season and overthrow Lyle as Season 1 Pick'ems champion. Guys, first game of the week, Maryland at number 23, Texas.
I would love to see Maryland compete with these guys. I think Maryland could be a decent team this year, but they're going to get worked by the Longhorns. I'm sorry.
I think Shane Buechele makes a big jump from his freshman year to sophomore year as well, and I think Texas takes their first game against Maryland.
I think Herman in his first game as head coach at Texas has a lot to prove because moving from Houston, the short move over to Texas, I think they have a lot to prove, and I think they're going to win this first game.
In Austin, Herman's first game, that's a Longhorn victory.
This is going to be a very interesting game because we're going to get to see how Texas looks. I feel like I said, they could be really good, they could be really bad, but I'm going to go with Texas as well. This one I feel is the best game. Well, not the best game, but the most excited we're going to be when it comes to this pick'em, and that is Wyoming at Iowa.
I'm going with 2 words right here, and that's Josh Allen. Wyoming is going to go into Iowa, and they're going to take down the Hawkeyes in their first game of the year.
Iowa also lost their best player on defense in Desmond King, and with Josh Allen leading that Wyoming offense, I think they take it in an upset.
It's not like me to pick against the Big Ten 2 games in a row, but I think I'm going to have to. Potential #1 overall draft pick and the quarterback for Wyoming. I think Wyoming torches that Iowa secondary because they lost a couple guys there. None of them went drafted, but they lost a couple guys undrafted, signed in the NFL. And they have a very struggling secondary. One of the worst. I think they're ranked 12th in the Big Ten in secondary.
I'm all aboard the Josh Allen hype train like you guys. Wyoming takes it.
It's unbelievable. Wyoming are 14-point underdogs, but they're getting a clean sweep right now. I'm taking Wyoming as well. I think Josh Allen's going to get it done. Lyle did touch up on Iowa losing their best defensive player and arguably their best player on their team from last year. Number 11, Michigan versus number 17, Florida at Jerry World.
If this game was not at a neutral site, if it was in Florida, there'd be no way I could pick against the Gators. But with this neutral site, I think it's going to be interesting to see how these teams come out in their first game. I'm going to go with the Wolverines.
Michigan's lost way too much, and Florida has gained a lot in Malik Zaire. Transfer from Notre Dame. He's going to lead Florida to a Game 1 win.
God.
My sleeper pick for the Heisman, Wilton Spate. Like I said, games. The Heisman's won in the first 6 games of the season. We saw Lamar Jackson last year. First 6 games, played great. After that, dipped down. I think Wilton Spate and this Michigan team, Chris Evans, a sophomore running back who's a very talented young player, another running back to watch out for in college football.
Where's Chris Evans from, Brady?
He's from Indiana.
Oh.
One of my rival high schools. But I'll tell you, I'm not just saying that because he's there. He's a starting running back. He's a starting running back for Michigan. He's a good player. But I'll tell you this, Michigan wearing those uniforms that make them look like minions, I think they're going to win this game against Florida at Jerry World.
I like that.
I think Leonard Fournette would have something to say about the Heisman being won in the first 6 weeks, but that's for a different discussion. And this game's really a pick'em. Obviously, neutral site, 2 great teams. And when in doubt, you go with Vegas. Vegas has Michigan -3.5. I'm going with the Wolverines.
Vegas has the -3.5. Well, I guess I got to change my pick because I'm unsuccessful at Vegas. I mean, I got Michigan highlighted here, but if Michigan's favored, oh, this is too tough. I'm just going to go with my pick at Michigan. All right, guys, we got Troy at Boise State.
This is another tough one. I think Boise State just barely outlasts them. Just barely.
I like Troy. They had a good year last year. They almost upset Clemson, the national champions, and I think they beat Boise State.
I think the Smurf turf reigns again. I say Boise State's going to win it. In a similar fashion they won the Fiesta Bowl a couple years ago with the Statue of Liberty.
So you're predicting the Statue of Liberty is how they win?
Not that, but a trick play.
Okay. Also, I'm going with Boise State. They're good every year. They're solid. And at home, Boise State's got it.
I slipped on Troy last year, but not this year. Troy takes it on the Smurf turf. Appalachian State at number 15, Georgia.
I think Appalachian State, kind of like you said, I think the Mountaineers could have a decent team this year, but I don't think there's any way they go into Athens and come out with a victory. There's no way. There's no way. I think the Bulldogs are going to win this one big.
Georgia's going to win by 4 touchdowns, not even a question.
Yeah, I think Georgia's got a lot going on their side. They're playing at home. There really isn't a big question about this. Georgia all the way.
Yeah, you would have said that about Tennessee last year when Appalachian State rolled in there. They made it pretty close. I'd say Georgia as well, but this one's going to be a lot closer than some people think.
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned earlier, Appalachian State has the potential to go undefeated. I don't think they do. I do think Georgia wins this game, but I do not think it's going to be a blowout. 4 touchdowns, that's very, very generous. I think Appalachian State loses this game, but it's within 10 points. Number 22, West Virginia, and number 21, Virginia Tech. Now, this is a good game, arguably maybe the second or third best game of the week.
I'm going to go with the Hokies in this one. I think, no, this game is in Landover, Maryland, correct?
Yes.
I think they're probably going to have a solid majority of fans there, being in not extremely close to Landover, but relatively close. I think the Hokies take it. You know, especially if this was in Blacksburg, Virginia, I think the Hokies take it 100%. It'll be a very good game, but I'm going to go with VT.
I'm going to go with West Virginia, and because of a guy we haven't gotten to touch on yet is Will Greer. The guy was 6-0 at Florida before violating NCAA regulations, had to sit out all of last season, but now he's back. He's at West Virginia, and I think he's going to lead the Mountaineers to a win over Virginia Tech.
I agree with you, Lyle. Will Greer, great quarterback. We saw him come into Florida, play very well in the 6 games. Had the case go on, so had to sit out the rest of the season, and then transferred. I think he'll do a very good job here with this new team at West Virginia. They're young coaching staff as well, along with young players, so a young, energetic team in West Virginia. I'm going to go with the Mountaineers.
Justin Fuente made a good impression in his first year, and I think he'll only improve off of that. Obviously, it's not Blacksburg, but Virginia Tech at night, I'll still take the Hokies.
I'm going Hokies as well. I do like Virginia Tech, but this one as well, this could be a pick-em. 2 very good teams. Texas A&M at UCLA.
I think the Bruins are going to be a lot better than they were last year, but again, that's not saying a whole lot. They had a pretty good recruiting class, but at the Rose Bowl, there is no home field advantage when it comes to UCLA. It doesn't matter if it's at night, doesn't matter if it's a day game. The Rose Bowl, I've heard it, seen it loud a few times, heard it loud a few times. It's not going to be rocking for this game, and I hate to say that, but I think the Aggies come in and they roll right over them.
I actually like UCLA in this game. I think Josh Rosen's looking to prove something after he got hurt last year, and before the injury, he wasn't playing well. This is a big year for him if he wants to raise his draft stock, live up to that top 10 pick potential, and I think he starts it off with a good win over Texas A&M.
I think Texas A&M will win this game, Lyle, because it's Texas A&M. I think UCLA, they haven't performed very well at all in the last, I think, 2 or 3 years. Josh, you can tell me the exact number of wins they've had the most in the last 2 or 3 years. I think it was 4.
4 last year.
4 last year. And Texas A&M, like we've talked about earlier in the show, they're always full of athletes. Yes, they're not playing at Kyle Field, which is one of the best home field advantages in all of college football. But I think Texas A&M will roll in to UCLA into South California and come away with the victory. Southern California.
South California. Hey, Brady, it's okay. It's late. It's 12:15 a.m.
I said
I won't
Southern.
hold it against you.
I said Southern. Southern.
Oh, jeez.
Take 2? Use take 2.
Just basing my pick off what's happened the past few years, this is right up Texas A&M's alley. They always start seasons just on a hot streak. Everyone's picking them to go to the college football playoff. Everyone's picking them to beat Alabama, and then they blow it. But luckily for them, this is early in the year, and I think they're going to take care of business at the Rose Bowl.
As we've seen, Texas A&M is, I don't know what happens where they go 6-0 and then they lose 5 of their next games. I don't know. I think UCLA does get this one done. I am with Lyle on this one. We touched up on home field advantage. That place is going to be rocking. But that's because it's going to be filled with 90% Texas A&M fans, and UCLA is not going to have anyone there. So it's going to be a good environment, but I do think UCLA will barely get it done. But I won't be surprised if Texas A&M just smokes them. All right, guys, a few left. Number 25, Tennessee, and Georgia Tech.
I got to go Rocky Top in this one. I don't think they're going to be as good as they were last year. Again, I don't think they were a fantastic team last year. Tennessee is a team that I believe is a hit or a miss. This year, I think it's going to be more of a hit.
Well, we all know Josh loves Tennessee, and I'm going to get on board with them and pick the Volunteers to win Game 1.
Josh, why do you love Tennessee so much?
I almost went there, and I love the fight song.
Yeah, that's why.
It's true.
That sounds pretty great. I mean, he's got a reason.
Yep.
I'm going to go with Tennessee. Yes, I know the 3 of us have been almost the same picks in a row.
Yep.
But Tennessee is coming in there with a great roster. Yes, they lost Josh Dobbs, their starting quarterback from last year, But do you know who the starting quarterback for them this year is?
To be honest, I have no idea.
I'm asking. I'm not sure because that's a big question mark there. Yes, they have a lot of good athletes in the receiver and running back position. A very solid. I think they're having 4 of their 5 offensive linemen returning starters. So that's going to be a good thing. You know, you're going to have your quarterback well protected, but your quarterback scenario, your situation will be up in the air.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I think Tennessee takes this one.
Yeah, I mean, Georgia Tech, I think, will be a solid team, but I think Tennessee gets this one in week 1. And now we do have the worst of the worst, the Incarnate Ward.
You got it right this time.
Yay! The Incarnate Ward at Fresno State. Ooh, boys. What's the over-under? I'm going to put it at 1,000 people in the stands.
It's pretty good.
Where's the game at?
Fresno State.
It's California. It's nice out there. I think there are more than 1,000.
All right, guys. Who do you got?
Oh, well, I had a cousin who went to Florida State, and I think I've picked Florida State. Fresno State. Same FSU. It's the same thing. It's basically the same.
Yeah.
It's 12:20 in the morning. I've talked about her. She's been the reason why I've picked them before. Also, side note, she just announced that she's pregnant, so I'm going with the Bulldogs.
Yay!
Eeny, meeny, miny, Incarnate Ward. They're going to take the upset.
You know, I'm a big Indiana Pacers fan. And Paul George went to Fresno State.
We'll be in Indiana next year. Sorry.
Well, you
Or
say
this year.
that, Josh. But Paul George left us.
That's true.
So I'm going to leave Fresno State.
Oh.
I'm going Incarnate Word with Lyle. Let's go, Lyle.
Oh.
What's their mascot anyway?
Who knows? I'm going to find out right now. Blake, make your pick.
I'm not too caught up on Incarnate Word or Fresno State football. I've not been watching them. ESPN has not given them their due credit. But I believe Incarnate Word won a big basketball game a few years ago.
They beat Nebraska.
Well, that's going to translate onto the football field. Incarnate Word takes it.
Y'all are too crazy on this one. I'm going with Fresno State Bulldogs. There's no way that Incarnate Word gets this win. If that somehow happens, Lyle, you're hosting the show next week.
All right.
They're the Cardinals, by the way, and their logo's kind of cool.
Oh, nice. All right, guys. Now it is time for the final pick'em of the week, and that is New Mexico State at Arizona State. We've touched up on Arizona State for the show. Do they start the season 1-0? Oh, that was actually a sick rhyme. Hold on, really quickly. We've touched up on it on the show. Do they start the season 1-0?
Dude, you
All right.
are
Word to your mother,
so
Blake.
Cool. Okay, anyway. Brady and I are calling the game for
Yes, sir.
Blaze Radio, 1330 MKSC, Blaze Radio, and BlazeRadioOnline.com, which is where we are streaming live right now. Blake will touch on that at the end of the show. For Brady and I'm hoping this is going to be a good game. Unfortunately, I don't think it is going to be. I think the Devils win 54-21 to open the season here in Tempe.
At least it gets us a lot of scoring.
That's true. Build up that play-by-play and color commentary demo reels.
This is what you'd call a tune-up game for a team like Arizona State. They should easily steamroll over New Mexico State, and I think they will. They'll win by 3 touchdowns. Sun Devils get their season off to a good start.
We had the opportunity to talk with Todd Graham the other day. All of us in this room, actually. We were all at ASU practice the other day. We had the opportunity to talk with Coach, and someone asked him if he'd rather start the season off with an easier game like this or a Power 5 team like they saw a couple years ago with Notre Dame and with Texas A&M. And starting off the season with an easier team, it can be bad for the rest of your season, but I think a win in the first game against a lower opponent is good for your team. So I think ASU is going to win this first game, similar to a score what Josh said, but I don't think ASU is going to put up 50-plus points.
Todd Graham is all about manipulation, trying to hide things from his opponents, and I expect to see that on Thursday. He's not going to show us everything. The offense is not going to look how it's going to look probably for the rest of the season, but they do need to have a good showing. Last year against Northern Arizona, at halftime, I believe it was like 13-6 or something like that. It got a little scary there at the end of the first half. I don't think they want to have that scare. I think they want to get everyone in, everyone playing, make sure there's no injuries. So I think this one's going to be rather big win for ASU. I'll have it by 24.
A bigly win.
Bigly.
It's going to be great.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
that win is going to be the second biggest thing at Arizona State this week, but I'm going to make this nice and quick. I'm going to go with Arizona State. Hopefully they can make this one big. Now, guys, really quickly, another little fun thing we are going to do. It is the cheapest and most
Hang on.
expensive.
Aren't you forgetting a game?
Am I?
That Bama Florida State game. No big deal or anything, but like.
Oh, guys, that is right. I completely overtook that one.
It's
Sorry.
okay. It's 12:24 in the morning.
Yeah,
Blake,
guys.
it's not even on. Oh, yeah, there it is. Never mind.
All right, guys, really quickly. Number 3, Florida State versus number 1, Alabama.
I think the Tide are going to roll in this one. I would love to see DeAndre Francois and the Noles start off their season on the right foot. Unfortunately, I don't think they do it this year.
I do think
Tide
Florida.
take it.
I do think Florida State has a very good season, but it's not going to start in week 1. I just can't pick against Bama week 1. I'd feel sick to my stomach doing it, and I think the Crimson Tide take it.
By the way, one quick fact check: that ASU NAU game was 10-3 at halftime.
Oh.
But I'm gonna say Florida State will come in this one and take a victory. Neutral site, neutral place, new stadium,
Yeah.
coolest video board, coolest roof in all of the world, I'd have to say.
And the Chick-fil-A will be open.
The Chick-fil-A's open. It's a Saturday.
Perfect.
And there's another game there on Monday, so it's open 2 games in a row
Nice.
for this Mercedes-Benz Stadium, not the Superdome.
No.
Because Saints are the Superdome. I don't know why they'd have naming rights for the 2 stadiums.
Who
But I'm going to
knows?
go Florida State in this game, just because I want to see them dethrone Alabama to start the season.
You guys mentioned how this is a neutral site game. Nick Saban has never lost a neutral site home opener
Never
in his
mind.
tenure at Alabama, and the Crimson Tide have won their last 8. It's going to be 9 on Saturday.
I've been hyped on them the last few weeks, and I'm going to continue the hype right now. Justin, this is for you. I'm taking Florida State in the upset. The spread is 7 for Bama, and I don't think Bama covers that at all. But guys, really quickly, also Lyle, shout out to you. You're the one that's been falling asleep in studio, but you remembered this important pick'em. So way to go, bud. Really quickly, guys, we're going to go over the cheapest and most expensive games of this upcoming week. The cheapest, for only $2, guys, only $2, you can go and see Nevada at Northwestern. Now, even more fun, if you go over to SeatGeek.com right now and enter the promo code Harris Highlights, you can get 10 tickets and not have to pay. Well, I mean, you have to pay a penny or two, but still, you can get 10 people at that game for essentially nothing.
So the tickets are what, $2?
$2, Brady.
Wow.
It's almost like I might just want to have to fly over there to Northwestern and spend the $2 on the game.
It's worth it.
It is definitely worth it, and the most expensive. Now, I find this one shocking. Obviously, it's Florida State, Alabama, but the cheapest ticket, $182. Very affordable, especially for a game at the brand new Mercedes-Benz Stadium. All right, guys, it is very late, so I'm going to try to wrap this up as quickly as I can. Merchandise, we have it, and if you're interested in owning some Harris Highlights merch, today is your lucky day. Pick up your own. Don't sleep on Chattanooga. Zane for Heisman, and brand new as of today, Mock the World merchandise. Way to go, Brady, getting that stuff out. If you're interested in that, the link is in the bio below. Well, guys, this does wrap up the edition of the Harris Highlights Show. We will be back next week as we break down all the games from this upcoming weekend, as well as make our playoff predictions. Now, I feel like that one is going to be very, very interesting. As mentioned, after this episode ends, make sure you head over to SeatGeek.com. Get $20 off your first purchase by entering the promo code Harris Highlights. There is no space there. It is one word. One word, definitely a deal you do not want to pass up. Also, we are going to be giving away a Pro Football Focus subscription, so if you love football as much as all of us, make sure you head on over there. Follow me on Twitter, send me a message why you want it, and we'll be giving one away on October 1st. Also, one more thing, guys, I know it's a lot, but we are officially live on BlazeRadioOnline.com every Sunday night from 8 to 9. I guess it's Pacific Standard Time, Mountain Standard Time, whatever it is. To make it easier, 11 to 12 Eastern at night. You can listen to us live, and I think next week or the week after, we're going to try and set up that phone so we can get some live callers in studio. Definitely some fun stuff you do not want to miss. The show's on SoundCloud. All of our Twitters are in the description below. Jordan K., thank you so much for being a special guest in studio this week.
Thank you, Blake.
All right, guys, that is the last of this episode. As we mentioned, it's 12:30. We got to get to bed. We got to study. Harris Highlights, we're coming in on 100K, baby. We're less than 500 subscribers away. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you do that. Tell your mom, your dad, your brother, your sister, your neighbor, your grandpa, your girlfriend, your ex, whoever it is. I mean, if we can get some ex-girlfriends, to subscribe, that'd be an interesting text right there. Hey,
You should check out the Harris Highlights
I'm
Show.
not interested in getting back together with you, but you really should subscribe to Harris Highlights. He truly needs it. Maybe we could start some relationships back up again.
And you know what? I actually just bought concert tickets for my current girlfriend, and I used the code Harris Highlights and got $20 off my first purchase.
Perfect. Well, I love it. Way to go. All right, guys, we got to get out of here.
Good night, everybody.
It's going to be a great week of college football, and we'll see you all next week.
Oh, hi, Mark.
Oh, God.